Hi, my name's Starling Chipanga.
My name's Bernard Ndango.
So we both manage the garden under Chengelo Training Farm, and this morning we'll share with you what we do in terms of seedlings. Hello, so we'll continue from seedlings or sharing about seedlings to sharing about transplanting. So transplanting in simpler terms is just the transferring of seedlings from a seedbed to a permanent bed or the main garden. So key things about transplanting. One is the bed, the permanent bed in this case must be properly prepared. So a good example is this one. Then secondly, it must be watered to field capacity. That simply means soft enough or wet enough but not muddy. Then we've got to select health seedlings, and this is where again I'll talk about advantages of seeding trays, because usually you get 100% or 90-something percent of health seedlings from what you seeded. Then the other point would be to timing, to look at the time. So normally you transplant in the afternoons or any time during a crowd day. Like today looks like a good day for transplanting. You can transplant at any time as long as the key point I talked about, there's moisture in the bed. It's watered to field capacity. And then, yeah, health seedlings, then they must come with a bowl of soil, especially if you're using a seed bed. That is a disadvantage. Again, that's an advantage here, because here it will come on its own with a bowl of soil. So if it can't come on its own out, then you just push a bit from the back. Yeah, these were watered. But if they're not watered a day before, you just pour and they'll come out. So I need to push from the back, got it. So this is what I'm referring to as a bowl of soil. So it's difficult to get this if you're using a seed bed. It requires a lot of patience when dealing with that operation or undertaking that operation. But with the seedling trays, it just comes the way it is. So now, the other point to consider is the depth of the transplanting hose. Now, we're talking about seeding hose, now is transplanting hose. So I've got Bernard with a stick. You just use simple things. It's a stick which you just plug in the soil at 5 centimeters approximately. So Bernard is going to do that, and it's important that that same stick is big enough to accommodate the bowl of soil. So the size of the stick should be about that size, so that this one just goes in freely. There should be no pushing of roots upwards or forcing them into the transplanting hole. So Bernard is exactly doing what I'm talking about. So this is rape. This is a seedling of rape, and the spacing is 30 by 30. So we are using a seedbed that has dripper lines. So what is good, and this is why you can't see a line here, because the dripper lines are graduated. I mean the spacing between the two holes is 30 already. So we just go pushing the holes just exactly where the point of water is. So now it goes down like that, as you can see, because this depth for the tray or the height of the tray is about 5 centimeters. So you do the wall exactly at that same distance, and you can see how nicely it's fitting in the transplanting hole. we can go on and on. So the next one will be pushed. Then the other thing is framing. So just do with your hands. So in gardening, unfortunately, you have to work with your hands, usually. So if you can't work with your hands, it's difficult. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so spacing. On bed preparation, I said the fine tilth. So fine tilth simply means the soil must be worked on nicely. So when you are just starting, we allow you to dig just to raise the soil and mix in with the compost. So you can dig up to a depth of 15 to 20 centimeters, not too deep, because you start bringing out the bottom soil. So we only want to work with the top soil. So the top soil is in that range of 15 to 20 centimeters. And that's what we do. We dig on up to there. Then we mix in with the compost, about 2 square centimeters a wheelbarrow. So every 2 square centimeters you put in a wheelbarrow and level it, then incorporate. Then after incorporating, then you break them down nicely to a point where you have a fine tilth. So a fine tilth is a soil where you don't have clods. What is a good example? Yeah, these things. So you break them to bring to what we call a fine tilth. Now this soil has been worked on a lot, and this is why I can easily break it even with my hands. So you bring it to that, and before transplanting, now you water into field capacity a day before, to field capacity a day before, at least 24 hours, because that allows the water to drain, so that you have only soft soil, not muddy soil, because it will be difficult to work with muddy soil. So that is very important about bed preparation. A day after, so if you are using seedling trays, it's only a day after that you come in with the fertilizer. And using the same stick, you just do 5 centimeters away and press the basil. You can just demonstrate. And put in your basil fertilizer in there, 5 grams per station. There are 5 cups. There are those cups that are already graduated. So use a 5 cup per station. Just so like tomorrow, in this case, we can apply the basil, no problem. But if you are using the seed bed, then it takes about 3 days for the seedlings to recover, to stand nicely, and that's the time you come in with your fertilizer again. So I said the basil come 5 centimeters away from the plant, because we don't need contact between the root system of the plant and the fertilizer. Otherwise it will burn the roots and kill the plant eventually. So it's a common mistake from my experience, years of experience with gardening. There is a notion or a conception that the plant will get the raw fertilizer the way it is. That doesn't happen. So the fertilizer has to go into the soil. A chemical reaction takes place until it is in a form where the plant now can get it. Okay, so with the ridges as well, there is this idea of, we have something already just next to us, where you cover that material or the weeds with the soil, and then you plant something immediately in there. So with gardening, that is a problem, because there's a process that has to go on in the soil, which is decomposition. So that produces heat, and that heat will not be good for the plant. So it will eventually kill the plant. Yeah, and I've had an experience like that, where someone transplant their seedlings in that way, and then a few days later they find they're dying one by one, and then they are wondering what is happening. So it's the heat from the process that is going on down there. So composting must have its own process or its own area where it is done. Otherwise, if you want to compost everything in the soil where you have planted something, you always have problems. So that process produces heat, which eventually affects the plant growth. Then obviously there will be pests and diseases, but like I said, in the nursery shed, the the most important thing is to keep the surrounding clean. So you can see we're trying as much as possible to keep this area clean. That's a cultural method of pest control. Then when things get out of hand, we go in with a chemical. And that brings it to something very important. So some soils, you are going to have a problem with cutworms. So there are worms that live in the soil and they hammer or they wake or eat your plants during the night. So what we do is after transplanting, we go in with a chemical. Commonly is karate or lambda cyrothrin. So any chemical with an active ingredient called lambda cyrothrin then will work to avoid that problem. But yeah, when you keep your surroundings clean, when you have treated your soils nicely, usually you don't have much trouble with those things. Then watering. So I said the bed must be watered the day before to field capacity. So soon after transplanting, you water again just to make sure life continues as quickly as possible. Then thereafter, we are only irrigating 2 to 3 times a week. Yeah, as long as you get to what they call 15 millimeter, 10 to 15 milliliter per watering. And with our irrigation system here, that takes about 2 hours to get to that 10 to 15 millimeter, and then that gives us a break to irrigate only twice a week or 3 times depending on the season. If you keep things on a flat piece of land, you have less issues with watering or irrigation. But if you put it on top, then you are just increasing pressure to irrigate, because for the bed to get wet, I mean to meet the level where the water table is, it will take longer. But if you plant something on a flat piece of land like this, then the water table and the water from the top easily meet, and that reduces the number of hours of irrigation. Like I said, in this case, we are irrigating on about 2 hours per section. But if you put on a ridge, you would irrigate even 4 hours, 6 hours to get the same results. So that is important. And just working or digging the soil every now and then is not a good thing. And here we do a lot of mulching, I think you'll see from other beds. So after transplanting like this, we'll cover with the grass, and that helps a lot. So as it goes down, as it decomposes also, it adds a layer to the soil. Organic matter is added to the soil, and that enriches the soil. And over the years, you'll find that the amount of fertilizer you are using decreases. So when we started here, we were using a lot of fertilizers, but now we just use a bit just to help the soil. And it's because of commercial purposes. Otherwise, if it was a backyard garden or something for just home consumption, we wouldn't even use fertilizer, because the soil is able to provide the necessary nutrients. So like this garden, because we are using it from January to December, so every year, at the end of the year, we are putting some lime just to reduce those issues of acidity, to balance the pH.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode and learned one way that you can bring life back to your soils. Feel free to leave a comment below or visit us at our website, foundationszambia.org.